Welcome to StemFoxIO. Today I'm going to show you how to fix and find those pesky little memory leaks. So buckle up and let's get started. Have you ever been tasked with fixing a memory leak and you don't know where to start? Perhaps you're going to look into something like, the memory graph debugger or pull up instruments. Heck, maybe even go down to printing logs in the dinit and the init and counting out, making sure you're getting 1 and 1 for each. Well, today I'm going to show you a great way to really speed up the process and find the leak and fix it and keep it fixed. When finding any leak, I like to break it down into 3 steps. First, I'd like to narrow down where in my code am I leaking. And for that, I kind of use some of those other approaches because I'm just trying to figure out what in general is leaking. Where is it? What action in the app am I taking? Is it on a button click? Perhaps it's when I instantiate a new view controller. What is causing that? And so I often just observe the code, maybe look at the memory graphs, and then I find out, oh, hey, doing this one thing that's what's causing my problems. And once I've done that, once I've figured out the general area of where my problem is, I start to narrow it down using XCTest or even Swift testing. Suppose you've been tasked with tracking down a memory leak and you've tracked it down to the point where you're pretty sure it's this object here. We've got this leaky object that's leaking, and now you want to figure out how to fix it and where exactly is it leaking. So my favorite way of tracking down memory leaks is using good old XCTest. Perhaps you already have this under test, and if so, that's great. But if not, we'll show you how to do that right away. You go over here to your project menu. We go here, we add it. We're going to add the test, add a new testing bundle. And we're going to choose XCTest for this one. We'll do another one later where we show it with Swift testing, but right now we're going to just use XCTesting. Okay, so now we go into here, and now we've got our tests. All right, first thing we got to do, let's clear off all this boilerplate. Great. Let's import our class here, our finding memory leaks. And let's start testing. All right, we're going to create a function. Test leaky function. Great. And so what we want to do is we want to create an instance of the object that's leaking, call the function that we think is leaking, and then test whether we retain that object in memory. All right, so I like to call my test objects SUTs, systems under test. So let SUT is equal to leaky object. And we're going to give it, of course, our name. Let's be fancy. Let's call it test object. And then let's call the method SUT.leaky function. And now we want to test whether it stays in memory. Now to do that in XCTest, we're going to create a teardown block. So we're going to go add teardown block. And here we're going to create a weak instance, weak SUT in, and now we're going to assert here that our SUT is nil. All right, so now if we run this, here we go, and skadoosh, we get this thing saying, hey, our object has not been released. So what's happening now is we run this test, we exit this block, and then we execute this block of code. Now, if we hadn't done a weak reference here, this of course this will always fail. But as we keep testing it, we can evaluate whether we are actually releasing it because we are doing a weak reference here. So this shouldn't stay in memory once we leave the function. All right, so our next step is to go over to our leaky object and start evaluating what's going on. So let's expose this. Our leaky function calls these 3 helper functions. And what we can do is, what I like to do is to start commenting out functions to see and find where the leak is. Now we can just go over here to our test navigator. We can just rerun these tests and it's going to go real quick. It's like, oh, hey. Oh, okay. So what we know there, since that passed, since when we exit this function, this is now passing, we know that our helper function number 1 is not causing the leak. So now let's expose that. Oh yeah, we're just printing there. That doesn't surprise us. Now let's comment out helper function number 2. We're going to go back here. We're going to rerun our test and bada bing. Oh, we have a failure there. Okay, so function number 2 is causing our leak. Now let's go back into here. Now, when we look at this, if we're savvy programmers, we kind of know what's going on. We can see pretty quickly that this is our problem here, right? We are referencing self in this block. This block is being called here and being stored in memory up here. So this object is pointing to itself via this callback block. And we can verify that. And what I like to do when I'm normally testing these things is I like to, just like how we started commenting out stuff here, I like to comment out things here. So like, all right, let's try that. Now let's rerun the test. Oh, okay. So we know that it's in this code. So now let's, maybe we think it's this guy. So we're going to uncomment that guy. We're going to rerun our test. And okay, so this guy is not the problem. All right, let's uncomment out this guy. And oh, okay, so this somewhere in these 3 lines of code is our problem. Now let's undo that final one. Okay, so now we've narrowed it down very quickly what line of code it is. And the benefits of using tests to do this is that we can just keep rerunning tests very quickly over and over to pinpoint the exact line of code that we think is causing the issue, as opposed to loading the app, navigating maybe 3 views in, clicking on things. That takes time and it slows you down and it's kind of a pain. Looking at the memory graph afterwards, this is a much quicker way to just keep executing the code and testing whether or not we have an issue. So now we can go about trying to fix it. We're like, all right, we've got this this guy here, and oh well, we know what to do. We got this, just like we did in the other one. We just got to create a weak reference here. So weak self in, and then we'll just do a guard. Let's self else return. All right, now let's rerun this guy. And good. Okay, well, let's not forget to uncomment that. Rerun these tests. And great. Now we see that helper function 3, of course, is not leaking. So now we can just go forth and we've now fixed the problem. Not only that, the nice thing about this is that we have created a test to make sure that this never leaks again. So if we're refactoring this and someone goes, hey, let's take this out, and we rerun the test, we'll catch it. We'll say, oh, nope, that's not quite right. We've got a problem here. And that is the joy of testing here with XCTest and finding these memory leaks. That concludes this video. I hope you found it as enjoyable and informative as I find this information. If you have, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next one.